gazing toward the nose. And when I'm in upward facing dog, you want the upper arm to rotate out. So it's a spiraling out like this. And that connects me, it connects the arm to the back. So it brings the shoulders on the back along the way. That has helped me to jump forward with lightness. So I'm in my downward facing dog. First, I lift my heels up high. Next, I push back and I bring my rib cage toward the thighs. Okay? So I kind of feel like a cat when I do that. Like I'm kind of like a cat getting ready to pounce. So I push back to be able to jump forward. Now why do I bring my rib cage to my thighs? So my pelvis is tilted. When my pelvis tilts up, then it can align over the shoulders to be able to float through. Because this is what happens most of the time when we jump forward. We go like this, and we're like this. Okay? Like the pelvis is down and we're just like this. Alright? So, we need the tailbone to lift upward. Why? So it can align to the upper back. If I'm like this, my pelvis is aligned to my legs, and then the legs are heavy and I'm like this. But if the pelvis is aligned to my back, then I come forward. Now, when I tell people we lift the arms at the same time, you guys know that? Okay, so that actually, when you do that, it actually forces you to really use the core. So it forces you to really come from center as you go into the first posture. So usually, most people kind of go like this, and then they lift the arm. But really, you're supposed to bend and lift at the same time. Okay? It's so different. It's so strengthening. Because you really have to use the legs and use your core at the same time. And sometimes it feels awkward because it kind of reminds me when you pat your head and rub your stomach. Like I kind of feel like it's like, when I teach students that, they're kind of like, whoa, how do I, they want to break it apart. So it goes back to using our body as one unit. So we bend and lift the arms at the same time. And then when we exhale, you actually want to reach out as you come down. So you don't want to get into this habit of, sometimes it's like this. So energetically, you really want to reach out, lift your tailbone, and go into the way. Okay? So that's going to feel, if you start to do that over time, it's really going to be strengthening for the body. Okay, so jumping back. Lunging forward. So what I recommend here, I actually do, I know a lot of people, and this is perfectly fine. Some people step forward. That's a perfectly okay way to go into it. But I tend to lift the heels and I drop both down at the same time as I step forward. So what I do is, I'm a big proponent of a deep, deep lunge. I just think it's so strengthening for the body, and we work so much with the upper body that when I do my Sensation B, I really go deep. So another thing is, the deeper you lunge, the more open the hips start to become. So you'd be surprised how open your hips can become from really lunging correctly. So before I even lift my arms, I get the knee over the ankle, and I make sure I'm nice and deep, and the back leg is super strong. When I lift my arms, I actually use my core, and I reach out and go up. So I'm simplifying the movement. Sometimes people get in the habit of, they go up, and then they do a separate movement. So upper body up, and then the arms up. But it's so much more strengthening to lift from the ground. Simplifying the movement. making it a little more efficient. So here, once again, 5 breaths at the end, and then I'm fast forwarding here, so jumping forward. Ooh, a little, almost made a mistake there. Almost tumbled forward. Inhaling, exhale. And when you come up, I would recommend going as deep as possible. Keep your hands down, lifting, and then Samasthiti. So if you're really disciplined with yourself, you really use the legs, you would be surprised. It makes it maybe a little more challenging, but you do build more heat and you get a little more strength. And when you go deeper, it really opens up the hips. Buoyancy here. But I get deep by going wide. The upper body is spiraling open.
So it's like opposite fist. The thigh in,
Yes.
the upper body out.
Yes. And so, and this happens, the same thing in triangle. The back leg spiraling in, the front leg spiraling out. So even in this position, the hip is spiraling out like this. This is spiraling in. In triangle, spiraling out, the back leg spiraling in. Okay? Pointing the toe a bit helps to kind of energize the leg and lift the energy. And we actually do want to touch and hold. And I tell you, this is, I mean, an extremely challenging pose. Because I remember my thigh, especially here, it would just burn, when I would be done. But it's very strengthening. So the same thing, when you go out, point the toe if you can. Let the energy drive up. Another thing is to make it a little more challenging, line your chin with the shoulder. Okay? And then coming back in, we touch, we inhale, and then we exhale. Now, I know some people like to bend the arm and lifting the head. It's actually a lift. Okay, so we lean into the arms and we actually lift. And then we jump back. Okay? So the hands a little bit forward from the feet. And then you would just keep the head lifted so you don't feel like you're going to tumble over. And you just jump.
Inhale up.
It's not a beginner's wish.
Virabhadrasana 2 or Virabhadrasana B. You bring the hands down. You engage the back leg, and I lift and jump back. Okay, so this is another opportunity to use your upper body strength and kind of add a little bit dynamic energy into your practice. You want to step down on the right foot and just drive the energy up. You don't want it to be a noodle leg because then the energy will just kind of be erratic. And then you keep the head lifted and go up. Lean into the arms. Okay. When Sharat does it, he actually he lifts. Yeah, he leans forward and lifts. And people do it both ways. But I'm not that strong yet.
You have all right.
To do it like he does. Because he's like that.
He said
And
no.
jump back. And then, I remember that year I got so strong because I would just hold and I would just jump back. So you have to use the breath because the breath is your fuel when you do this. Okay. I close the shoulder joint down. I do a strong internal rotation and then I grab the opposite wrist with the wrap, with this arm. Okay? I inhale. So that's actually supposed to be one inhale when we do that. And then we exhale, come forward. So if you close the shoulder joint down, you'll be able to wrap higher and you'll be able to grab the opposite hand or wrist with more ease than if you were just to do this and not really think about rotating the shoulder. Another, line your shoulders over the hands and then drive the energy down and just lift, energize the straight leg and then come down. The leg, and I just lean forward. It's a little different for everyone, but you really just want to first kind of drop down. And when you do this pose, you'll know why the hips need to be open. You'll know why you have to do all those more Janu Sirshasanas, all those Marichasanas, because the hips need to open to do this pose. So you want to keep the bottom up a little bit high. You want to drop down. One thing you can do is that was probably an awful picture. No Facebook. Okay, so you take the back of the heel, shoulder under. You take the other heel, shoulder under. You can do both at the same time. You wiggle under.
So you go as wide as your mat.
Hmm?
You go as wide as your mat.
Actually, maybe a little, I would say a little bit more narrow. It depends on the person, okay? Because some people have wider shoulders, some people have more narrow shoulders. So you want to be able to be wide enough that you can get the shoulders under and through, but not too wide that you can't get the legs up high, okay? So now, it depends on the person, because some people, it's so much easier for them to place the hands behind the feet and sit on the upper arms. For me, this is much easier. But sometimes I've had to have some students actually put the hands under the feet. You can do to sit on the upper arms and cross. Okay. Point the toes to keep myself lifted, and I go down. First phase is the head, the forehead down, so you may work here for a while. Once that's easy, then it's the chin. And then I have to extend through my back. And then lifting up. Okay? Usually, it's always a little bit easier to go down, and sometimes there's more of a struggle to be able to lift up at some point. But it's all about driving the energy down into the arms. Okay? So when I'm preparing to lift, I'm really pressing down through my hands and driving the energy down through the hands as I squeeze the legs into the arms to support the weight. Okay? All right, so I'll come up. And when we do the transition, keep squeezing in. You open the feet and you work back to Bakasana. Okay? Now when you do Bakasana, the feet are together. The feet come together, the toes are pointed. Okay? That's just, because that was another thing that Sharath, I think he yelled at me for, I don't know, one of these years. But he's really big on when you do Bakasana, feet together, toes point, and then we jump back. Okay? Sometimes it's okay to break it down. So when maybe in the beginning we're a little bit like this. That's okay. Maybe we hold on as much, maybe it's like the toes are touching, and then and that's okay. That's how it is in the beginning. Sometimes there's a little bit of fear with jumping back out of Bakasana, and sometimes I just have students touch the toes lightly and then jump back. Just lightly touch down and jump back, and then as they start to, I just got a cramp in my foot. Then when they start to build a little more upper body strength, then they're able to jump back.